Hello and welcome back to Live from Paris. I'm joined now by Matthew Warren from our business desk. Hello, Matthew.
Hi, Lorna.
So there has been slightly better news from the Eurozone just recently, but now fears that actually the euro could be getting too strong.
Yes.
Tell us more about
Perhaps
that.
you can have too much of a good thing. Well, the euro is currently at its highest level against the dollar since November 2011 at $1.36 to be precise. Well, a strong euro can be damaging for European exporters, and that's causing some concern that perhaps Europe's fragile recovery could be threatened. This report from Will Hildebrand.
The euro is much better. It's stable, strong, perhaps too strong in some respects.
A strong euro could mean a weaker France. French Finance Minister Pierre Moscovici is concerned the euro's strength could dampen exports and wanted his concern made public.
It's a way to apply pressure on the European Central Bank, whose policies Moscovici believes are too restrictive, and that they should be loosened up in order for Europe to end the recession and to have a lower exchange rate. But it was also a message to the markets, saying the euro is too strong and that it will be necessary for it to fall in the upcoming months and weeks.
Since its 2002 inception, the euro has made a steady climb against the US dollar, and on Friday the euro surged to a 14-month high to $1.36 on foreign exchange markets. Strong performance that has affected exports in southern European countries such as France. High on the agenda at the next EU summit will be the eventual regulation of the European Central Bank, a power some believe the EU already has.
The French minister has only himself to blame. He has not used this power, which was established in the treaty, to enable European countries to influence the exchange rate.
But not all EU leaders agree. It will be a thorny debate when they meet Thursday and Friday and try to tackle the Eurozone's budget for 2014 to 2020.
Well, Matthew, one other concern here in Europe at the moment is the budget.
Yes, now the European budget. Remember that back in November, European leaders tried to get an agreement and a proposal of just under €1 billion was tabled, but they didn't reach agreement on that. Countries, notably the UK, saying that they want to see a cut in the budget. Well, François Hollande, President of France, and Mario Monti, Prime Minister of Italy, were in Paris meeting on Sunday. That was one of the issues that they were talking about, and President Hollande came out of that meeting and said he wants to get an agreement, but so far conditions are not right to get that. Let's take a listen.
We know that these negotiations are very difficult because they affect our view of Europe, which is, in our eyes, founded on solidarity and growth, but also on national interests. And it's right that every head of state should defend their own interests at the European Council. So we will do everything at the next Council that we can to find an agreement. But the conditions have not yet been met.
OK, Matthew, let's have a look at the markets this Monday. How they
Yes, well, we'll just start with the end of last week because Wall Street had a very strong finish to the week. In fact, the Dow Jones Industrial Average went through the 14,000 barrier. It was the first time it had done that for 5 years. There you can see its trajectory over the last 5 years. Now, that good cheer carried over into Asian markets, at least for the most part this Monday. The Nikkei and the Shanghai both closing the Monday trading session up, but the Hang Seng and the Kospi there in South Korea, slipping back a little bit. Let's take a look at Europe, where markets are just opening up, and you can see as well that perhaps that burst of optimism has petered out a little bit. Just the Paris CAC 40 managing a few small gains at the open this Monday.
OK, well, moving completely away from the markets now, from Europe to South America, in fact, because you've been getting in the carnival mood, Matthew.
Indeed. Well, it's the world-famous Rio Carnival, which starts in Brazil this week. And, well, with all those costumes, you would expect the textile industry in Brazil to get a real boost. Lots of fabric that they use. Well, in fact, production in Brazil in that industry is down, while imports from Asia are booming. This report from Maria Zuppolo and Elena Casas.
Claudia opened one of Brazil's first boutiques dedicated to Carnival in 2002. Now, 70% of her materials come from Asia, mostly from China, Brazil's biggest trade partner.
Nowadays, people live in a globalized world, so you can't get away from that.
And that globalized world is hitting Brazil's once booming textile industry hard. Production fell 4.5% in 2011, while Chinese imports shot up 16% last year. Carnival costumes still get the Brazilian touch, though.
We import these fabrics, the raw material, but the printing is done here in Sao Paulo, in Brazil. So we've managed to mix business with pleasure.
Claudia's prices are competitive. Chinese-made fabric costs €3 a metre. That's good for the samba schools, who buy 60 kilometres of fabric each on average. Overall, they spend €90,000 each on costumes after 8 months of careful preparation. Here at the Académicos de Tucuruvi school, this year's theme is a homage to Brazilian actor Mazzaropi.
Some subgroups have 100 members, others 180. People make their clothes themselves, trousers, belts and blouses.
Each school has between 18 and 25 groups, between 3,000 and 4,000 people altogether.
It's a dream all year round, so people are careful about the details to put on a really great show.
The raw material might be Chinese, but the creativity and passion of the carnival are all Brazilian.
Well, let's get some of the day's company news now. And a full merger of Italy's Fiat and US Chrysler will take place next year. That's according to the Fiat boss, Sergio Marchionne. But in his interview with the Repubblica newspaper, he would not confirm whether Fiat will keep its headquarters in Turin. Fiat says it hopes to make profits of up to €1.5 billion this year.
Now, a threat for Britain's banks. Legislation is set to be announced by Finance Minister George Osborne this Monday. He'll tell banks they risk being broken up unless they separate their retail and their investment arms. The new rules are aimed at preventing the need for huge bank bailouts in the future.
And who will head the board at EADS, the holding company of aircraft maker Airbus? Well, French newspaper Le Figaro reports 2 names in the frame. It says former European Central Bank President Jean-Claude Trichet is one of them. The other is the former chairman of French bank BNP Paribas, Michel Pébereau. Well, it says the nomination committee failed to back the former head of the nuclear company Areva, Anne Lauvergeon.
OK, well, we're going to stick with aviation now, Matthew, because more potential problems for Boeing over its battery issues.
Yes, well, remember the grounding of the 787 jets owned by various airlines. Japan Airlines is one of those companies that had to ground the jets it had, and it was reporting results this Monday, and it says that this grounding will cost nearly $8 million just up until March, and it wants to talk to Boeing about compensation, it said rather menacingly. It also said profits were down 3.7% in the 9 months to December, but they're upping their full-year profit forecast for the year to about $1.8 billion.
OK, well, we're going to stay with Japan because a territorial dispute is affecting its tourism rather seriously.
Yes, now, this dispute, of course, over islands in the East China Sea, and it's had political, diplomatic effects, but also lots of economic effects. And the latest one we're seeing is in tourism. The number of Japanese tourists going to China is down massively. Look at these figures from the package tourism industry. February and March down around 80% in both those months. Hurting all sorts of businesses, including Japan Airlines, in fact, who we were just talking about there. Both it and its rival, All Nippon Airways, have cancelled flights to China in recent months because of this drop-off in traffic. It's not just them. Car makers like Nissan, Honda has also been saying that exports to China have been having problems as well. So big ramifications of that.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed, Matthew, for that look at all today's business news. The international weather is coming up next. Then Stuart Norval will be here with all the latest headlines. So do stay with us here on Frost Weekend.